Hello everyone, and welcome to this video. In today's video, we're going to be reviewing Hyperdimension Neptunia ReBirth 2 Sisters Generation. The game was released in 2014 originally on the PlayStation Vita and then in 2015 for the PC. The game was created by Idea Factory, Compile Heart, and is an updated sequel to the original MK2 release of the game, which came out originally in 2011. Well, let's begin this review. The game's story begins with seeing the main CPUs being defeated by a powerful new enemy and going missing for 3 years. We then start with IF and Compa going on a type of rescue mission to find out what's happened to Neptune and the gang. Compa and Iffy are only able to rescue Nepgear, and this is where we, the player, finally take control. The game's story consists of Nepgear going around game industry trying to acquire the help of the mascot characters and meeting Rom and Ram and the others along the way as the story progresses. Eventually Nepgear and the others are able to rescue Neptune and the rest of the gang. However, they then have to deal off with finishing the last of SFW's forces while also trying to save game industry from total destruction at the hands of the deity of sin. Story-wise, the game is done in chapters and has around 8 chapters, which also branch out into different segments, such as the Holy Sword route and also the famous Conquest route. Now, I should mention the Conquest side of the story, as it made quite a mark in the Neptunia series, as this route upset a lot of snowflakes out there. The basic premise of Conquest is that Nepgear gets a hold of a sword which can kill a CPU, and can also take a CPU's power, making it stronger. She also takes all the shares from the other members of the CPUs, and uses it as a type of coup to gain more power to defeat the deity of sin. Now, this route upset a lot of Neptunia fans because it gets extremely dark very quickly and only gets more and more dark as you progress. It isn't something a lot of the Neptunia fanbase was really ready for, because the Neptunia theme is generally a type of happy-go-lucky, never too serious, always being silly, but with lots of game references type of game. But Conquest flipped everything upside down and has Nepgear essentially having a type of breakdown, stealing everyone's shares, and then killing off her friends one by one to gain power. I, for one, praise the developers for having the bottle to actually do something like this in the Neptunia series, because it was something I never expected to find or do in a game series as enjoyable as this. The Conquest route literally grabs you by the heart and then flips everything you know about the Neptunia series on its head. Seeing Neptune steal the shares from the other CPUs is nothing compared to what happens later on, seeing her kill off each one of her friends one by one, only to have the words of R4 mean that killing all of them meant nothing, and it just leaves the ending empty and full of despair. I can understand why this ending isn't for everyone, and why some people seriously snowflaked over it, but realistically, 1, it isn't the actual ending, and 2, it is incredibly brave of Idea Factory to try and put something like this in a Neptunia game. The way that the story is laid out is very well done, with a good level of pacing, which allows characters to join on what feels to be the right time. The whole point of this game is that it's meant to be focused on the younger sisters, so it's good that the game gives you a long period of just these characters, rather than the main four such as Neptune and Vert and the other crew. You do get to play as Noir, Vert and everyone else later on, but I really did like how the focus in this game was just on Nepgear and the younger sisters, as I was worried originally that because this was called Sisters Generation, that I would only play as the actual younger CPU candidates for about 20% of the game, and then the rest of the game would just be focused on the main 4. Thankfully, that isn't the case in this game's story, and you do actually play as the main CPU candidates for a good length of time, before Noir and the rest of the gang show up. Character-wise, the game has a huge variety to choose from. You get Nepgear and Uni, along with the other CPU sisters. You also get other characters in this game, which don't seem to have made an appearance in other Neptunia games, such as Cave or Red for example. You eventually get to play as Neptune and the other CPUs, along with a whole host of other characters that all have their own individualities and moves. All the characters in this game are in-game characters, so you don't have to get any DLC characters in this game like what you did with ReBirth 1, where you had Plutia and Pishi. Everyone who's in this game is in the actual base game, and you do get a lot of characters to choose from. You won't be getting bored anytime soon just playing the same characters, such as a certain other game out there, which only gives you 3, and that's it. It gets boring very quickly. Each character themselves is beautifully created and very well designed, and comes across as an individual rather than just a copy of someone else. I also like to point out that the voice acting is spot on. I really felt that the voice actors matched their voices to the type of character that they were representing perfectly, with Netgear sounding reserved most of the time, only to then come across as confident, but slightly nervous at the same time. The voice actors match their voices to the characters perfectly, and I really do feel that the voices do actually represent that character as a whole. They come across as funny, serious, sad, while all the time still maintaining their own individuality. It isn't just the good guys who come across as brilliantly well designed either. You also have the game's main villains, such as Brave and Trick, who also come out as well put together characters, with Trick especially being one of my favourites. I liked how he comes across in the anime series especially, as it's nice to see a nuts character like Trick come along and not have an entire country snowflake about a fictional character who hasn't actually done anything wrong and it's just taken as a joke. The game has a lot of casts to go through, especially if you're going to try and defeat all the bosses at the Colosseum, which means you're going to need to level up to an insane level 999 if you want to actually achieve everything. So, leveling up all the characters may take you a while. The gameplay follows suit from the previous ReBirth design, where combat has been improved upon and the game itself has had various other improvements here and there. The game itself comes across as a type of hybrid visual novel / RPG type game. You have 2D sections where characters interact with each other while the story progresses, and then the game switches to 3D for the stages and the combat system. The two different designs work well together perfectly, and switch between the two styles during the game, so you're never really focused on one main style constantly. I really did enjoy how the two styles mix together well, and how the 2D sections and the 3D sections actually work together quite well. You don't think that they're a different game, you just think it's the one game. Combat itself consists of attack, defend, special moves, and then you have your EX moves. You need to gain various levels on the EX meter in order to do certain special moves, such as combo moves or higher level finishing moves. You can walk about in combat, and the combat system is also turn-based, meaning that once you take action, it's time for then someone else to take action, and so forth. You have to actually think about your actions in combat, as some enemies or bosses can pretty much wipe out your entire party with just 1 or 2 moves, so thinking ahead is usually needed, especially for the higher end Colosseum battles. Looks wise, the game's graphics are an improvement over the original MK2 release on the PlayStation 3. The ReBirth version was released on the PlayStation Vita and then the PC, with the PC port looking slightly better due to being able to raise its graphics slightly. The game's graphics, however, do seem to suffer slightly here and there in places, such as the 2D sections, where I noticed that when a 2D character had an open mouth, the animation around the mouth looks slightly pixelated. I didn't notice this in later titles such as ReBirth 3, where obviously the developers improved upon this. Another slight issue I noticed with the game's graphics is that when you go into a new stage, the game would hold up for roughly 2 to 3 seconds loading the stage's enemies, because it was doing them all at once. It's not a huge deal considering that it's only about 2 to 3 seconds, but it is something that I did notice. And this was with my GTX 670, and when I tested it on my GTX 970, it seemed to do the same thing. So I doubt having the latest graphics card today would make much of a difference on that. And as I've already said, it's only about 2 to 3 seconds, and I do think most people can live with that. Being a ReBirth title, everything has pretty much had an improvement done to it graphic-wise. The 3D character models look better, and at least to me, they do look as if they have more details on them now, such as Compass Jumper. The menus have all been improved upon, and everything just looks that much nicer from the original MK2's graphics, which make the game itself come across as brand new and fresh. There have been some reports from people saying that the port has various graphical issues, such as black screens when opening the game, meshes not rendering, random game crashes, and the odd few other thing here and there. Personally, I've never experienced a single graphical issue with any of the Neptunia games, and I have pretty much every single PC Neptunia game that's been released, aside from Hyperdimension Noir, and the only reason I don't have that is because I can't stand the awful chibi crap animations. That being set aside, however, I haven't had a single issue with any of the other Neptunia games, which leads me to the conclusion that these people must have potato-powered PCs running Windows Vista or something like that, or quite possibly that these people are Mac users who buy a Mac and then wonder why 90% of software won't work on it. I didn't find any issues with the game myself graphics wise or bug wise, aside from what I previously mentioned with the 2 or 3 second delay. But as always, being with PC gaming, you have to remember that not everything will be perfect or work for everyone straight out of the box. The store page doesn't mention anything about needing a monster of a graphics card to run the game, so I don't think many people will run into issues, as I highly doubt in today's day and age most people will be running anything like this on anything lower than the GTX 580. The world of game industry has gotten bigger from ReBirth 1, with new stages, but also stages from the previous game being recycled, but with a slightly new appearance, or a different layout from the previous game. It's kinda a common theme for the Neptunia games to take stages from past games and put them into the newer games, but to change them slightly or to add new sections to them. Some people do complain about this, as it is a type of a recycling method, but at the same time, I would think it would be a little strange if that stage from the world just vanished without any explanation at all. These stages are part of the world in which Neptune and the gang live in, and it is part of their world. I do like how if I play the next Neptunia game that comes out, that a level from the previous Neptunia game will be in there, but that it's either been made longer, or it's been improved upon, or something else. To me, it's just adding more stages, and as each Neptunia game grows, you're just going to get more and more, so I don't really see why anyone would complain about this. It's more stages for each Neptunia game that grows, which can only be a good thing. The world of game industry itself has its own stages and characters which you can interact with on the world map via the Chirper events. You can also see each nation's shares on the world map as well, which you're going to need to work on if you want the true ending. From the world map, you can also access a store where you can buy equipment and items, and you can also access Stella's dungeon. This is a type of minigame where you can send Stella off to explore dungeons, and she can come back with new items for you. It is a nice added extra to have playing in the background while you're actually playing the main game itself. However, some dungeons can take up to about 2 hours to do, so if you're wanting all the items from each dungeon, it could possibly take you a while. I really did enjoy the world of game industry, seeing places such as Leanbox and Yellow Nations and how they now appear. Neptunia ReBirth 1 is its own separate game, with a beginning, a middle and an end, and when that game finishes, that game is actually finished. ReBirth 2 is meant to be a type of sequel, but at the same time it isn't. The developers assume that you have played the first game, which is why they don't mention nations fighting or the appearance of the sisters, as this is explained in the first game. It is a different dimensional version, but at the same time, it is and it isn't a sequel. To realistically get the most out of this game, you really do have to play the first ReBirth game first before playing this. And that's not only just to get the most out of the game's story, but also to get the most out of the game's environment and world as well. If you're wondering, should I buy this game? Then the answer is yes. However, play Neptunia ReBirth 1 first. Otherwise, certain events in the game or certain conversations that happen within the game will just fly right past you and leave you puzzled, and you won't really understand any of what's actually going on. Sisters Generation is a great game, which took a huge risk with the conquest route, which if anything deserves praise rather than criticism. But for those who don't understand what I mean, imagine if you took something, say like My Little Pony, and you took Twilight Sparkle, and she decided to take a sword and then kill each one of her friends off one by one, then decide to take out Celestia, then claim herself as ruler, while also claiming that she did it to save Equestria. Well, you can imagine that might not stick with a lot of the fan base, considering that it's meant to be a happy-go-lucky type of cartoon. I personally think that it may make an interesting episode, however I don't think many of the fan base may be quite happy about that, and that's essentially what happened here with the Neptunia series. Idea Factory took a route, went down it, and a lot of the fan base weren't happy about it. That being said, they were probably experimenting and seeing what would happen if they did try this, and personally, I applaud them for having the courage to take this route. And I feel that each gamer who plays this should do the conquest route for their first playthrough, to see how it settles with them. It is a great game, which lasted me around 60 hours, and that was with me doing all the side quests, various endings, and the Colosseum battles. You can also get the game fairly cheap these days as well, because Idea Factory usually bundle the game with other games when there's a Steam sale on, and if you're really lucky you can pick up ReBirth 1, 2 and 3 together for a great package price. So if you are wanting this game and there is a sale on, and you can see the opportunity to pick up all 3 of the Neptunia ReBirth games, then you can't really go wrong. However, if you're wanting the game itself, I can't really recommend it, as its Steam's current asking price as of today is around $22.99 for just this game. It is a great game, and I did enjoy it, but the asking price for this single game just seems insane when I could just wait for a sale to come along and pick up all 3 of the games roughly at the same price together. Yes, it is annoying, you would have to wait for a sale to come along, but Steam sales come along all the time, and it isn't also just on Steam as well. You can also check out eBay, G2A, Greenman Gaming or various other websites which will probably have the game a lot cheaper. So if you are wanting just this game, then I would advise that you wait until a sale where you can hopefully get all 3 bundled together on some type of Idea Factory special bundle pack where you may possibly get games like Fairy Fencer and other Idea Factory type games. It is a good game, I do recommend it, but if you are wanting just this game on its own, I would recommend waiting for a sale. Well, that's it for this review guys, thanks for listening, thanks for watching and please subscribe.